Hello, I'm Nick.
I'm Mihaly.
I'm Manoli.
And we're the A-team.
Hi, Nick. Sorry, I missed the middle name. Nick and...
Mihaly.
Manoli.
Okay, thanks. Hi, guys, and I'm Susan. Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Susan.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And I heard that you gave us a job. Am I correct?
That's right. A commission, Nick. Yeah, I'd really like to talk about that commission with you, with the A-team. So you've got some questions. That would be a good start.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For this job, is there a deadline?
Is it on a deadline?
Yeah.
No, not really, Nick. I think what I would actually like to aim for is that I have a son and twin nieces, and I would quite like to give them an outcome of this commission as a Christmas present. Oh. Now that might be a framed picture of some of the documentation. It might be framing of the medals. It might be access to the website we've been talking about. So I'd like something from this commission to form a Christmas present for the 3 grandchildren, if we can.
Yeah,
so that's kind of a deadline around a Christmas present, but it's not essential, Nick.
And this is about your father, the old photos, right?
Yes. It's about, it's really about his, at this stage, Nick and A-team, I think it's just about his war service. I don't think it's about his life in general, but it could expand to that. But my priority is to document electronically his war service and his experiences in New Guinea for the 3 years that he served in the Australian Defence Force. So at this stage, the brief is narrow to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was your father's name?
His name was Walter Cleland, Cleland, Cleland Kilgour. Walter Cleland Kilgour. And he was born in 1926, I think. Anyway, we've got that recorded somewhere. Yeah, and I've got some medals which I've given to you.
Yep.
And what's really interesting about those 18 is that they've really only been handled by the soldier himself, by Walter Cleland Kilgour, and by me, his daughter, and possibly very briefly by my son Ben, his grandson. So they're a little bit precious just because they're war service medals, but they're also a little bit precious in that they haven't been like handled by a whole lot of people. They've just been handled by the soldier himself and his descendants, and I kind of think that's rather special. I don't know whether you do, but I do.
Yeah, it means a lot. You have any other questions, guys?
No, not particularly.
Hang on. I think Mihaly wants to say something.
We'll be wearing gloves when we're handling these things.
Where were you born?
Me. I was born in South Australia, I was born in Berry, in a town on the River Murray in South Australia, and I was born on the 20th of October 1949.
Okay.
And that sounds like a long time ago, and it is. It is Manoli a long time ago. Yeah, so a bit.
Where was Susan's dad born?
Where was my dad born? He was born here in Darwin, actually.
Oh, wow. Really?
It was called Port Darwin then, and he was born here. And his parents, John Kilgour and Alice Kilgour, were married in the Wesleyan Church, and that's that building in the Botanic Gardens that's turned into a restaurant.
Oh, wow.
It used to be. I could find this out. It used to be on one of the streets in Darwin when Darwin was called Port Darwin, and then it was moved to the Botanic Gardens as the Wesleyan Church, and it was lovely. It was a lovely little church, and now they've turned it into a cafe, which is kind of a bit sad. But yeah. So my father was born here, and he was the son of John and Alice. I've got these details if you want them. But married here in the Wesleyan Church in Darwin at the Botanic Gardens. Well, it's the Botanic Gardens now. I've got a photograph of me standing in the doorway, walking into the church.
Yeah.
That is where my grandmother would have walked as a bride.
What was Susan's dad's job in Darwin?
His job? Yep.
Some of it was in Darwin. I think that he probably left Darwin when he was about 4 or 5. His father, John Kilgour, was he was a public servant. He worked at that stage for the post office. So, and then the family then went with his work as a public servant in the post office. The family then went to Canberra. And I've got photographs of the family, my father and his brothers and sisters in Canberra, and then they went to Adelaide, and so most of his childhood and life was spent in Adelaide. And I think in that photograph album that James has got, there's a photograph of the kids in Canberra. They're sitting on some steps, and there's a lamb there. And then there's photographs of the house that the family lived in Mayland. The address is there in that album. In Mayland in Adelaide. So I knew my father's parents as my grandparents living in Mayland in Adelaide. So born in Darwin, Canberra, and then Adelaide.
And do you know what his medals for?
Do I know what?
What medals he earned for?
I do. James has actually got all that information.
Yep.
Of what he earned the medals for.
Yeah.
Look, they were pretty standard Australian Defence Force issue medals. They weren't special, but James has a very fragile piece of paper there in that collection of things that I left that say what the names of there's 4 medals, what the names of the 4 medals are, and what they were for. And there's some information in a book called the Kokoda Trail or Track or something. I wrote some information about his war service there in that book, but I was hoping that you might also be able to access through the Australian War Memorial a legible version of his war service.
Yeah.
So the little bit that I know is that it's in the book, I think it was either the 6th Army or the 8th Army of the Australian Defence Force defending. There were 2 big battles in New Guinea. And I can't remember what they were, but it's written in the front of that book. And he was part of one at a place called Atapay. And he was, and the Americans were in the war then. And so him and part of his division were working with the Americans. So he's got photographs of action that is linked to a particular campaign at Atapay in collaboration with the Americans. So I know a little bit, but you know, as always, Manoli, you wish you'd asked more. And he was very private about the war. He didn't volunteer any information, and he didn't march on Anzac Day. He didn't get together with the men that he knew to celebrate. That's the word. He just stayed very quiet and meditative on Anzac Day. And really the message I think that I got from him was that it was to be thought of as a horror, as something that was desperately awful for everybody. You know, he didn't seem to bear grudges or any hate for, you know, the enemy, if you like, the Japanese. He seemed to feel great sadness for everybody involved, and I think to a degree a powerlessness. The one aspect of his service in New Guinea that he spoke positively and warmly about was the support that the local Papua New Guinea people gave the Allies, and the soldiers called them the Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels. Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels kind of sounds a bit derogatory these days, but I think they meant it with great affection. And there's a photograph written on the back, the name of a New Guinea man, and that must have been the person that he was directly in contact with and who helped support him and his fellow soldiers. So other than him expressing warmth and gratitude and a recognition of the positiveness of humanity, that was only expressed towards these people, these New Guinea saviours, I suppose, who really helped the men. And as for anybody else involved in the war at that stage, he thought it was deeply inhuman and desperately sad. And he had a sense of being used and manipulated by a capitalist world.
Yeah. And well, James has many friends in Papua New Guinea. We are going to try if we can talk to someone that in the area that he fought in.
Oh wow! Okay, that'd be amazing. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, and if you would like, someday you would like to come and visit us and see how our workplace looks like, how we operate, and what we do other than digitizing.
Right.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. And what outcomes we can expect from this commission. So, and I've got to say that I'm really excited to be working with you.
Yeah.
Because I actually, the way it started was that I just went to Don White, the picture framer people.
Yep.
With the medals. Now I've lost you again. I've just gotten.
It's like a slideshow.
There we go. Okay. Technology. I have no idea how you're doing that, but that's okay. And it was the young woman at the picture framers who said this is quite important and precious, and you need to get all of these things photographed and all of this digitized. And I went, I've got no idea how to do any of that. And so I'm a friend of Karen and James's, and I was talking to James, and he said, I've just got the right men for you, Susan. They'll know exactly what to do. So
yeah,
I feel a little bit like I've been a bit rescued from doing the wrong thing.
It's all right.
And this in particular, one of the medals has lost a ribbon. You will have seen that. I've ordered a replacement ribbon, so that's coming. And so I guess, guys, if there's things that you want me to do, then possibly we need to think about a way of perhaps communicating that. Maybe that's something we can talk about next Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and thank you, Susan, and we will get started this project today.
Oh, fabulous! Thank you so much, and
No
thank
worries,
you for your time. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.